Joyous day, joyous day. New Zamasu cards. They're not very good. Shocker. Bandai has once again given us another Zamasu deck. This time again in green. Only 3 sets ago, we saw the Goku Black and Zamasu plan to eradicate mortals or whatever deck. And we're getting another one. I'm excited because I love Zamasu. I'm disappointed because it's not in blue. And I'm disappointed because it doesn't look super duper good. But I do think it does have some potential just with the fact that it's like hand control and deck control. Not to mention the fact that indestructible, when done correctly, can be really strong. So we're definitely going to take a look, see what we've got going on here, and just see what's ahead of us in terms of where the deck could go. So leading right off, we've got the leader. When you attack on the front side, top 5 for a green god. Simple enough. Life is at 4 or less. You have 2 or more energy and a green Z unison. You're a 1/1 leader picked down to 6. Very normal front side for modern day Dragon Ball. Nothing to really complain about. On the back side, when you attack, you draw 1 and get 5k for the battle. So nice to just go up to 20k, right? Match Z leaders, force a super combo if your opponent wants to get out. And then likewise, it does have a couple other skills. So when a green Zamasu with Evolve or Union is played, you just mill one of the cards off of your opponent's deck. And it's just every time it happens. Auto, when this card is done, you place 1 card from the top of their deck to their drop area. Very simple. The fact that it's not once per turn means that like if you go like a Union and then into an Evolve, that's going to be 2 cards. And if you like played as a Zamasu out that triggered that skill, switch it to rest mode, mill 1, whatever, you can get rid of a lot of cards really quickly out of your opponent's deck and just kind of keep pushing that pressure of like, hey, you want to draw cards to beat me, but if you draw cards, then you're going to deck out, so be careful. When you can choose the Goku Blacks, you can basically just choose them from your drop area when activating the Union cost. So as long as you have a Zamasu on board and a Goku Black in the drop area, you can fuse. Very good permanent. Basically lets you shortcut through some of these Patara pieces. And then we've got some Z cards here. Gawasu Instructor is probably going to be our center point of the deck to be able to play out this new card, as well as a couple others. So just once per turn, when a card is milled off the top of your opponent's deck by one of your skills, add 1 marker to this card. The only way to gain markers is via that effect, so you do need to make sure to try to trigger it every single turn, so that way you are getting that plus. But ultimately, right, it's a 5k, it's a 1/1, so like if they kill it, it sucks that you have to reestablish it, but it's not that big of a deal, right, to not get that many markers on it. The hard part is that they could swing into it right away on turn 2, and if you do have the Frieza Charismatic Villain, you wouldn't have access to it anymore. Activate main for plus or minus 0. If your leader is this guy, you can go ahead and play 1 Zamasu or Goku Black card with energy cost of 1 from your Z deck, or Z energy with its skills negated. So you can go ahead and play this new Z card on our right, or you can go ahead and play out one of the cantrips that we'll look at in a second. So just being able to produce the body, typically you're going to go for the Zamasu because you can grab the Goku Black from the drop area. Just to be able to go for a Union Fuse, if this guy ever lives, it basically turns all of your Union Fusions into a super big plus engine. And then -3 when your opponent attacks with a battle card, you can choose a Zamasu card, green Zamasu, switch to active mode and gains blocker for the turn. So if a card was ever able to, say, be indestructible blocker, that's not bad. Could be a lot worse. So -3, just it could come up where like, oh, like I'm at the end of the game, I can just blow these markers to gain a blocker, right? But enough colors have ways to remove this guy that I wouldn't expect that to happen very frequently. The Zamasu and Goku Black meeting in despair. 1, 2. 2 is pretty costly. It's not impossible to deal with that, but it is still pretty costly. Limit 1 if your opponent has 20 more cards in drop. When it's played, it gets 15k for the turn, so 20 dual critical for 1 and 2 is actually really, really good. It's just annoying that it has 2 Z energy if you're trying to just set it up out of nowhere. So it's not terrible, but it's definitely not great. 20 or more cards in drop is unlikely just because of Overrealm existing. But, you know, if most decks are only playing 1 Overrealm, if you happen to mill it earlier in the game, well, maybe you get this off, and right, that's a decent little amount of pressure. The cantrips, both of these cards have the same activate main, where if your leader is exactly the backside, you can switch it to rest mode and place the top card of your opponent's deck in their drop area, milling 1. That's not bad. And then both of them are simple cantrips. So Zamasu literally draws a card, and then Goku Black top 5s for a green god, 5 or less. That's most of your deck. It's not the boss monster. It's not some of the searchable secret rares. Obviously, we have a secret rare yet to see this set, which I do suspect will be mono green. But it could be something else, but I would be shocked if we didn't get a new green secret rare this set. 4 drops. We've got 2 Goku Blacks and 1 Zamasu. The Zamasu is probably the most important just because it is a Zamasu, but the Goku Blacks are still important in that, like, they're good names, they have better effects. So we'll go ahead and just start left to right here. So attack wave Goku Black is going to be when it's played, play a shadow token, it gets 10k in blocker. So it goes to a 20k blocker for your opponent's turn, which is not bad. But realistically, is that so good? It's a 20k body, so it's a little bit better than these other two, you know, on base value, but both of them can gain 5k from their effects, so it's not super different there. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this card is really great. If you or your opponent has 3 energy and you have a green Zamasu leader, you can pay 1 to play it, and then mill your opponent 1. That's probably the best part about this card, is that it has an activate main to mill 1 outright. So, right, you could trigger the Zamasu, or the Gawasu to get a marker, even if you don't have the ability to Union Fuse or Evolve that turn, just to make sure that stuff is happening. And then obviously, like, gaining a blocker can be good if you're going to dormant potential your opponent. It's just that as a token blocker, chances are it's not really going to live, right? Like 20k without an energy cost, you know, the no energy cost is probably useful, but I don't know. It's just a little weird. The card is fine. These kind of are all just enablers for the deck. It's not like we're expecting these cards to be backbreaking. Both the Zamasu and the other Goku Black have the same. If you have 2 more energy and your leader is a green Zamasu, play them from your hand for a green. When this card is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards 4 or less and KO it, then place the top card of your opponent's deck into its owner's drop area. Additionally, if you have a Zamasu with Union in play, you get +5 in double strike. I think this is probably the best one, just on an outright pace here, but it's nothing crazy, right? So the fact that it does mill 1 is still good. It's not part of the activate main, so if it ever got counterplayed, that does suck. But it's still okay. And then obviously 20 double is really good. It's just, I don't know how frequently a Zamasu is going to be sticking around to have Union, just based on the fact that Indestructible is getting worse. Goku Black is Zamasu is very similar. When played, draw 1, mill 1 of your opponent's cards, and then if you have a Zamasu with Union, you get 5 in critical, which is better early game, but worse basically every other time. The reason this card would be good at that point is realistically just he draws 1, right? Like he's a body that automatically replaces himself, whereas Goku Black kills a 4 or less when there's enough removal in green that you shouldn't necessarily be concerned with that. And since it's a Zamasu, it's like you use this and then you can fuse right on top of it, get lots of power. And since both of these cards gain 5k, you can actually use them as a way to fuse and then get a little bit stronger for your next cards, right? So think of something like Red, if they wanted to counterplay with, say, defeating the Demon Son Gohan. You go +5k on this, and then you can Union Evolve, and Union Potara, and then look at that, now it's a 25k, so it's a little bit bigger, so it can't really just die to your counterplay. But nothing super crazy, just enabler cards. Potara time. These cards are okay. The 2 on the outside both have the same Union Potara for a green. If your leader is a green Zamasu, draw 1, mill 1 off your opponent's thing, off of a Goku Black and Zamasu. On the left, this card is probably my favorite of these 2, but it's, you know, one of them is kind of an advantage gainer, and then the other one is a removal guy. So Cleansing Despair being the advantage gainer, when he attacks, draw 1, and then choose up to 1 battle card from underneath him and use it in a combo. So notably, this does not specify a 5k cost, so if you ever are playing any 110k Zamasus or Goku Blacks, this guy can be a 30k swing, draw 1. That's honestly pretty good. Whereas Ideal World Creation, which the art on this one is way better, so that sucks that that's the the worst one, is that when it attacks and you place one of the cards underneath it in the owner's drop, so basically it limits you to 2 uses, you can KO a 5 or less and then remove a marker off of Unison, so removes 2 different pieces of artwork. Both of these cards have totally good use cases. I think that Cleansing Despair is definitely going to be the better one, just because turn over turn draw, if you have him, is going to be really great, right? So think about, like, the Building a Utopia green-yellow card is literally a limit 1 to draw, and this is just not. So the cards that restand your Zamasus, the cards that, you know, if you make more than 1 of him or he lives turn over turn, he has a lot of value. And then we have the super rare. The only super rare for the archetype, which is questionable. I think that's fine. Obviously, it just means that we're getting like a lot of black or multicolor super rares, since green I think is getting 3. But, like, that's okay. So, Indestructible 20k, same stats as these guys right here, being a 5 cost. Union Potara for 1, draw 2 is really good, right? So, if you think about Gawasu here, like, if Gawasu lives that turn, you just go, alright, +0, make a Zamasu, get this, pay 1 to draw 2, and produce this guy. Then activate main, you can choose 1 card from under him and add it to your Z energy. Choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards and KO it. I don't think a Z card can go to the Z energy, but for sure you can at least get 1 KO if you're using the Goku Black 1-drops, or if you're taking a card out of your Z energy, you get 2 removal instances of that, and that's really cool. But he does have another way to play himself for just 2 if your leader is green or a god, so you can play this in other ones. And you choose 2 gods in your drop area, place them underneath 3 or more energy. You just play them from your hand, put all the cards underneath, and your opponent discards 1. So in other green decks, he's basically a kill 2 things, make your opponent discard 1, and then he's an indestructible 20k. So like, I totally think, and he builds 2 Z energy, right? Like the fact that he does all of that in other god decks or just other green decks, I think is really, really valuable. And I think people are really sleeping on just this card as a generic option. I mean, just building 2 Z energy for 2 in green is pretty solid. Like, there's a lot of decks that could really use this. It just, there needs to be decent god cards. So hopefully we can get some more of those here. We've got the boss monster. He is double strike indestructible. I don't know why he's still a 20k. It's like almost confusing how like neutered they wanted to make this card. So indestructible 20k, you just evolve over the 5-cost green Zamasus, which is, you know, fine. It's like that's a 2 or 3 energy play all in all while drawing cards along the way. So it's like I think everything replaces itself. And then he's a double strike. So when he's played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards and KO it, and then your opponent mills 2 cards off the top of their deck into their drop area, which is honestly a lot better, right? That really speeds up the piece here. So you're still going to play 4 of this just because, I mean, right, sometimes you're just going to need to mill a few more cards, but it's something that could work. And then activate battle, limit 1 if there's a card under this card, place all the cards in the owner's drop, choose the Zamasu, switch to active mode, and it gets 5k for the turn. The fact that this can switch your leader to active mode to get an additional draw and get that next attack to be at 25 is really, really good. Obviously, this could also work with, say, the 5-drop Zamasu Cleansing Despair, just because it's another draw, right? I think this card has a lot of merit. It's just that, unfortunately, as a 20k, there's going to be a lot of times where red just laughs at it, and then the other colors are still going to struggle. Miscellaneous cards, I think both these cards are not great, especially Gowasu. This card's just bad. If your leader's a Zamasu, you negate the attack play this card, and when it's played, you remove a marker from a unison. It's kind of weird that this guy wasn't, like, free if you have a Z unison out or something like that, because this attack, or this, like, effect is just not good enough to warrant doing. Like, because you're a non-Saiyan as is, you could just play King Piccolo. And King Piccolo is, well, 20k critical, remove a marker, KO a 5 or less, and Gowasu is just remove a marker, and it's a 4k 1-drop. So, not very good. Assault is a little better. If your leader's a mono-green Zamasu, you can basically use 2 mono-green Goku Blacks or Zamasus from your drop area, use them in a combo, and then if you do that, you can go ahead and give one of your mono-green Zamasus 5 or less the skill for the turn that when it deals damage to your opponent, switch it to active mode, then place up to 1 god card from your drop under this card. So if you're playing against any of those other Zamasu rights, they basically all build another effect for themselves, either removal of anything, removal of a card, and a removal of a 5 or less and a unison marker, or draw a card, get a free combo. Notably, I do want to make sure that you guys know that this can combo with 110Ks, so if you are playing things like the 7-drop from set 3, I think, that you'd be Twisted Justice, that you'd be able to get that as a free 10k, so it'd be like 1 energy for a 15k, and then get this additional effect. So that could be really good, and since you are playing green, you have things like Dormant to get cards into the drop area. Just something to think. I'm just throwing out ideas. The card seems okay, especially because it gains it for the turn. If you were to, like, use this, that deals maybe like their 5 to 6 life, and then if you swing again and you like put a Cell's Kamehameha on it, you might deal another single strike, getting another piece of removal or another damage. Like, I don't know, it just seems like it could be okay. I'm gonna try it at 2. I have the whole deck printed up, you can actually see it right there. So we're just gonna try to test it out, but I think this stuff is gonna be pretty okay, but the Gowasu is just bad. We've got some of the old mono green cards. I just wanted to make a note of these. I don't think that you're really going to play a whole lot of them. Maybe you play Deity's Wrath, just as like a high roll for the decks that can't deal with your 5 costs, just because, like, after the SR gets its use, replacing him with the Deity's Wrath that gets a turn-over-turn discard out of your opponent, it could be really good. Zamasu the Undying is an indestructible green Zamasu you can play for 1. That makes it really useful against certain colors like blue and stuff, right? Like if you're playing against like Shupilaf Mai, you can basically swing on turn 2, and when your opponent goes to do that, Zamasu the Undying kill the Shupilaf Mai, and then combo this guy off, or combo off a different card, and then this guy might just live and get to do all of your effects. So I do think this card is super, super strong, in the fact that, like, it kills Shupilaf Mai, which is a huge deal, but honestly, it's not super crazy. I could expect to, like, side this into blue, maybe. And then finally we have Evil Psych Zamasu, so blocker, indestructible, barrier, and it can't switch to active mode, and then it's unique. So realistically, I think the only reason you would play this card is because it's a barrier indestructible. So if you were to like just try to play this on turn 2, it would be like super protected. The only things that would start removing it would be like the green trunks and the blue trunks from the, like, very few cards would be able to remove this. Obviously yellow could have like Final Flash or something, but that takes a lot more effort. So the only cards that would remove it efficiently would be like those two. So just something to think about that I don't think it's going to see any play, but probably these two on the right could both find slots in the main or side. Then we've got some green multicolor. These are the only 3 that I think are really worth it. Honestly, I'm pretty sure they are the only green-yellow multicolor of these 2 names, but the 2 Zamasus both ignore energy exhaust, which means you get access to things like Flying Nimbus, Mutaito. You get access to free Focus Breakthrough, which is really, really good. Right, preventing a 3 or less is really valuable right now, with Kidku being the best deck in the format. Of course, there are additional benefits. There are just a lot of reasons why yellow might be good, so I do implore you guys to try to find some of those things yourselves. They're 110Ks, which is obnoxious, but since you can charge them, they're not so bad. You can always discard them off of Dormant. They're yellow cards if you wanted to play Nimbus. Just okay stuff. So I don't want to spend too long on them, but, you know, Deviant Tenacity is a board wipe. Building a Utopia is like one of the best cards in the world if you can get it to stick. The problem is that a lot of times, like, multiple colors have instant answers to him, so bleh. And then we also have the Goku Black Saiyan Manipulation. I think this card could really see play in this deck. So if your leader is a Zamasu card and you have a Zamasu in play, you can just play it from your hand for a green, and when it's played, you just pop any battle card. One thing that I did notice this deck has an issue of is that both the one of the 5-drops and the 4-drop Goku Black are both removal for like 4 and 5 and less, but they don't pop anything. Only the new SR pops anything, and there are a lot of big cards out there that, like, you need to be able to remove them the turn they come down. Otherwise, you're just not getting enough value. And if you're spending turn over turn making sure that you're fusing and trying to draw as many cards as possible so that way you can kill your opponent or you can draw enough cards to mill them out, you might have a bit of an issue there. So just something to think about. I think this card could see play. Obviously, it's a 110K, so if you are playing, like, Assault, it comes into value there. Although, I guess that's only mono green, so disregard that. But it is a 110K that the 5-drop that swings and combo from a card underneath, that one can combo with this, and that's really useful, right? So it'd be a 30K instead of a 25 draw one. Just something to think about. Good start. And then we've got some searchable secret rares here. Majin Buu Kibito Kai Absorbed is not that good of a card, but honestly, like, activate main battle to, like, steal an opponent's, like, good unison. Like, if you're thinking about, let's take, like, Kidku, for instance, right now, right? If they didn't have the Chaozu to kill your Gowasu, or you paid 2 for Gowasu, you could then play this, steal their baby, start drawing cards, removing their board, and then, like, still present the fact that, like, oh, and, like, if I wanted to do this, you can't swing for the turn, right? Like, that's so strong that you can just, like, prevent your opponent from attacking with battle cards at an activate battle speed, right? If they start with, like, their non-best swing, they probably will because it's a dormant deck, so, like, they're going to start with their best swing, but, you know, something to think about. And then we have Wicked Saiyans. It's searchable. It's a Goku Black, so, like, after you play it, you could fuse on top of it, but I don't really think you're ever gonna do that. It's just something to think about. So I just wanted it to be known that it is searchable. I fully expect that we are gonna get a brand new secret rare this set. And if at worst, if you don't want to do that, just play like Black Smoke Dragon as a way to mill 7 cards off your opponent's deck. So that's kind of it. Zamasu looks okay. I'm a big fan of Zamasu. I don't especially love mill decks, but I have played most of them in some capacity. I really like that this isn't like explicitly a mill deck, it just happens to also mill sometimes. And the fact that like you could mill, you know, maybe like 2 cards a turn or something like that gives you the chance that like, hey, like 1 in 5 games, you're just gonna like hit a secret rare, and when your opponent doesn't have the secret rare and you like maybe take away like 2 super combos or something, that might be enough for you to just win the game outright. So I'm really excited to give it a try. Like I said, I've got it printed out right here, so as soon as we are done, I'm gonna go ahead and get this cut out and start playing. Hope you guys have a good one, and we'll see you next time, mortals.